We're glad you're here. All right. So my name is Janine Bonilla. I am the Senior Marketing Manager here at ClearObject, and welcome to our How to Use AI for Your Business webinar. Today we have for you Jeremy Sink. He is the Product Development Lead of Google AI Cloud. And we also have Derek Bleyle, who is the VP of AI products here at ClearObject. So we hope you have a lot of takeaway from this today. You learn how to identify certain opportunities within your company and also help you launch a strategy for an AI strategy for 2024. Just a couple housekeeping things. If you have any questions, we will be doing a Q&A at the very end of the webinar, but you can submit your questions if you go to the bottom right-hand corner of your screen and look at the little activities logo. It has the shapes on it, and you click Q&A and you can enter your questions there. But again, we won't be answering any of those until the very end of the webinar. Let's see what else. So we're going to start this off with a poll question. And I'm going to launch that right now. So you'll see, did we already launch it? Yeah, I think we launched it. So the question that we're asking you guys is AI part of your 2024 business strategy? So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to answer the question. Again, you can find that down there in your activities part, and vote for that right there. So we'll give you guys a few seconds, and then we'll get into it all. Don't be afraid. All right. Anybody else? A few more. All right. Well, it looks like, I think you guys can all see the results. It looks like most of you have an AI solution in your plan for 2024. Awesome. So today we are going to talk about the different use cases and ways that you can implement AI into your systems. So first, I'd like to begin by introducing you to Jeremy Sink. Hi, Jeremy. How are you today?
Doing well, thanks. Hey, Janine.
Good, good. All right, so today Jeremy is going to talk to you about 10 predictions that he has for AI in 2024.
Great. Thanks, everyone. If anybody's up in the northeast part of the country, today is a post big storm at 70-mile-an-hour winds out here. So if my children run behind me, that's because they're home from school today, and I happen to be working from home. So, all right, let's dive right in here. So I wanted to start off just to take a look at perhaps some of the use cases that we're seeing, broadly speaking, as we have been sort of in the Gen AI moment here for almost the last 12 months or maybe more. I think perhaps some of these would resonate with you. Maybe you've got your own that you're working on. There are certainly no end to the different things, that generative AI can do. I think I heard one that was pretty good. I'll share with you. It got an audience a couple of days ago, said, generative AI can tell me, which boys to say no to for my daughter. I said, well, I think you could probably be pretty good with just saying no to them all. But, if there is an app along the way that figures that out, great. So here we've got, I think, purely, sort of the generative ones on here. I'll just call out, right? There's document generation, there's creative assistance, developer efficiency. That could look like create code or be my code assistant or my code companion. There's product or content recommendation and creation. And, GCP is offering a whole suite of products that can create those generative components for you, whether it be Duet AI as a sidebar, say in slides, creating content, or perhaps it's something that you may be using other apps for that are, say, running on GCP to actually create images or create text. So it's pretty exciting times. I hope if you see anything on here that maybe inspires you, I encourage you to dive deeper and we can chat about how you can get those things started. So I thought I'd take a few minutes and share some predictions just based on some of the things that we're seeing around the moment here, or the markets. We'll jump right into those, right? So number one here is focusing on that value and not just cost, right? So the why of what we're doing is to be bigger than optimizing cost or saving money. We got to get back to leveraging cloud to unleash ideas, solve problems better, and provide innovative solutions that y'all can feel and use. So we're ultimately about raising the ceiling, not just lowering the bottom line. Cost is what we can see, but the value is what we really need to pay attention to. And the cost of something is a simple calculation. The value of something is a conversation. How much does it cost versus how much do I care? So value will be increasingly tied to time. Number two, organizations will use a mix of managed services and DIY AI services. And so what do I mean by that? GCP is positioned to offer all of those things, but to sort of call some of that out, as we move from what's left to right on my screen, Vertex on the left-hand side is that fully managed platform. That's one of the three categories. So the first is for customers who are adopting that fully managed end-to-end AI ML platform. That's what Vertex is. It can help you to run your own large language models for text, or image models like Imagine, if you're creating those images, text to images. There's translation. You can tune. You can do all the things that an AI data scientist would want to do right on the Vertex platform. Then, as we start shifting over, second category is for customers who build a self-managed platform. You value control, flexibility, customizability over convenience, and you have a seasoned in-house infra management team. So examples of this are some of the larger companies out there: Apple, Snap, Shopify, Unity, Salesforce, Two Sigma, and GKE, or Google Kubernetes Engine, is a great match for folks that have that type of need. The third category is for those who want the best tool for the job and end up combining managed services with self-managed infrastructure. Some companies that we know are using this type of approach are companies like Twitter, and X, Walmart, Wayfair, PayPal, and Etsy. Third prediction: AI will impact most of our application lifecycle. And quite simply, we can model those workloads and deploy infrastructure, right, using these different tools. Tools like Duet can make those workloads assist in writing the code itself. We have large language models that you can tune on your own, perhaps proprietary data, coding data sets that will help to manage those workloads, scale up and down and right size. And then AI will move those workloads between the runtimes, between regions, and even between clouds. And so what I mean by that, the service, we abstract all that complexity away so that workloads just run smoothly across regions, even between the clouds. Number 4, prompt engineering and AI UX will become critical roles. Not that they aren't already, right? But prompt engineering is certainly one that's starting to emerge even more. So, and I think regardless of what we call them, there's demand for roles with how to interact with and maximize the output from generative AI. That's currently, text, but that could expand into things like images and APIs and voice and scripting and programming hooks, etc. So we're going to need all those people who can put the appropriate boundaries and guardrails around the GenAI output. We're going to move from sort of the thought of like, what is this, to show how to do this, to create and deploy it. So At times, we're hearing feedback like, will generative AI, sort of take over what I'm doing? And no, not necessarily. It may change it, right? Janine, do you want me to answer questions as they come through, or do you want me to just rip through the slides and then we'll come back and answer?
Just rip through the slides, Jeremy, and then we'll get to questions at the very end.
Okay, sounds great. All right, number 5. So AI partially replaces the keyboard. A lot of people are start scratching their head on this one, right? So basically, a third of apps will be built by non-developers. Most of the apps today are built by developers, and it's likely that in the future they'll be built and deployed by non-devs. So more and more apps will be created by those non-developers, and more apps in total will be created by GenAI. They'll be built and deployed by folks without development backgrounds. Creativity, domain knowledge, customer insight will become the valuable complements to programming skills for building those applications. And builders will be able to focus more on what they want to do without knowing all the details of how to execute. At best, it empowers more non-developers to become builders. And at worst, ideas can be prototyped for quicker handoffs to developers. Moving right along to prediction number 6. AI gets defensive. And, this is super important topic. And as more and more folks use AI, it's important we've got to prevent those bad actors who are also using generative AI. So if you're not employing AI to defend your enterprise, you're going to be at a disadvantage. And recent advances in AI, particularly large language models, have accelerated our ability to help the people who are responsible for keeping their org safe. These new models can not only give people a more natural and creative way to understand and manage security, they also give folks access to the AI-powered expertise to go beyond what they could do alone. Most people are responsible for security, like developers, system admins, SRE or site reliability engineers, even junior analysts, are not security specialists by training. So AI can help them identify and isolate, communicate, and even remediate these threats. Moving to number 7, the new inference as a service, right? And so what do I mean by inference is when I ask a large language model to ask them a question, the output that comes through is basically the inference. And so basically AI goes to work, training equals building the model, and inference sort of using the model to make predictions and solve problems. Some models need to be deployed locally. You can think about devices, phones, watches, vehicles, cameras. And also related, you can think about how we prompt these different models, right? There may be single shot, there may be few shot. These terms mean like, well, how many times do we need to prompt the model to actually get the answer that we want from that? And so having this as this inference as a service is something that Vertex provides to customers who want to build and develop on our Vertex platform. That just becomes a service. We abstract away all the complexity so that you only have to worry about getting the right answers to your users. All right, we're getting towards the end here. Prediction number 8. A bigger slice of data center and cloud resources are consumed. So data centers will run more and more AI, and that will help us to run those data centers better. So the prediction here, let's say 33% of our compute, network, and storage resources will go to AI-related workloads by 2026. And so that's a big chunk of the workload globally for compute. 33% of that will all become AI-related in just a couple of years. So obviously we need to, and other of the hyperscalers are figuring out how to use AI so that they can use how they can run the data centers more efficiently. And Google's one of the only that our data centers are completely carbon neutral, because we source all of clean energy that we can to run our data centers. So it will make us greedier, but it will also make us greener at the same time. We'll use more, but we'll waste less. And I think if we think about the energy required to run a data center, that, in our estimation, doubles every 4 years. So the information and communications tech industry will account for 8% of worldwide electricity by 2030. That's a 15% increase since 2010. So we'll need to reduce emissions by 45% over the next 10 years to meet the Paris Climate Agreement goals. Training one natural language model produced emissions equivalent to 125 round trips from New York City to Beijing. So if the internet were a country, it would be the 4th largest producer of carbon emissions. So we got to figure out a way that we can make that the most efficient and the cleanest way. All right, and then finally, we got to set this one up just a little bit for the last prediction. When you're going to buy a house or build a house, who do you turn to? You turn to the experts in the field, right? And you talk to your realtor, maybe you have a buyer's agent, or you're a seller's agent if you're selling. Or if you're remodeling a house or refinancing, you're talking to your mortgage specialists and you're talking to your contractors. If we're going to do those things, we'll always have those experts in the field that we can rely on. And what's the system that all of those, that whole industry revolves around, is this system called MLS, or that's where all of the sort of listings are held, right? Where you can see all the different attributes and things. So I think the thought here is that AI is a lot like real estate. And, we need to start treating AI like real estate. We need that professional help. At a bare minimum, we'll need a system like MLS that helps align our wishes to the inventory that's out there. Will you relocate, remodel, or refi? Well, you need to move into an existing model and, knock down a wall, or, do you want to build from scratch? Do you start with Palm or Gemini and, lightly tune that? Or do you actually have to start with one that you perhaps build on your own? And also, like, what's your budget? Or, what are you pre-approved for? Why do you want to move? These are all the types of questions and answers that a professional can help you with as you're thinking through this. So a lot of enterprises are moving into, we'll just say, AI like gated communities that they can't afford. And it's our intent to help sort of keep up with the Johnsons, but also make sure that you don't go broke in the process trying to do it. I hope you enjoyed those predictions, and we will move on to the next segment. I forgot my prompts here, but we'll just flip right through those and get to the next one. Thanks all. Thanks, Janine. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Derek. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jeremy. I really liked the inference as a service. Looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. I think that's going to be very important. And just understanding, it really focuses on the value of the AI rather than, some of the underlying costs that are associated with getting it, but really just, hey, what's the value that I can get from those inferences and how do I take advantage of that? So I look forward to seeing, how many of your 10 predictions come true and how fast they do. I think they'll all come true, just a matter of time. So I like them. So I'm going to try to focus a little bit about second half here, just really about how, customers, how you can think about your AI opportunities in 2024, how to frame, frame where your opportunities really lie in delivering value. Some of the concepts, some of the ways to think about how you should deliver your AI and breaking those up into kind of smaller pieces and chunks. And then really hopefully identify, within kind of the three major AI spaces, whether it's vision, generative AI, or connected products, really where to look for opportunities, and then talk a little bit about the value that we've seen in following kind of those steps and processes. So this first slide, really, so like I said, when we're talking about AI, first thing is everyone should know AI is not the only solution for every problem out there. We do, while we focus on delivery of AI, we do a lot of times help customers just understand and frame the question in a way where they can really understand what the potential solutions are that they have available to them, so that they can make the right decisions on kind of what's valuable to them as an organization. In a way that we help frame that, I really like this framework. There's a lady by the name of Teresa Torres who really kind of created this concept, but we continue to use it with our customers today, the idea of opportunity solution trees. So it's really starting at high level. What is the value? What's the objective or goal that I'm setting as my organization? What's the opportunities we have to achieve that? And at the end, talking about the solutions. So you'll notice the solutions are more at the end, and that's on purpose. It's really about prioritizing your opportunities before you go and pick solutions. So a lot of times we'll be talking with customers, might be arguing about different solutions, which ones should they do? And you'll find that actually they tie to different opportunities. So focusing on which opportunities you want to, how you want to achieve your goals can be just as important. So I have this fun example here. It's probably something most, if not all of us, can relate to. Hey, I'm trying to play golf better. I say score less than 75 on 18. If I could score less than 80, I'd be the happiest person on the planet. But so, what are some opportunities? So, hey, what could I do that would help me achieve that? I could, and usually you express these as needs or problems, right? So I need new clubs. Mine are 20 years old. I have the problem where every time I pull out my driver, it slices. Could use a different club. Could be a different, that could be one of my solutions, or maybe I go get lessons. The other opportunity is I need to play more. So, again, what are the solutions out there? I could buy a membership and get a golf simulator. And so the idea and the concept here, focus on which opportunities that you want to prioritize. So if you say, hey, I want to start playing more as a top priority. So that would tell me, hey, don't go buy any new clubs until I've started to play a little bit more, really understand what I need from those perspectives. And then, this, I would say, where does innovation come into play? It's really at this bottom level as a solution. A lot of times what we try to say is don't pick one solution until you've come up with at least 10 underneath that. Because a lot of times this is really where you can start to see some novel concepts come out, especially if you're making these decisions kind of as a team. So, just tying this back, I'll tie it back, show some examples how you can even think about this when it relates to AI. But again, focus on what is your overall goal and business objective, and really start to understand those opportunities and see what those solutions are. And some of those will be AI enabled, others will just be other, standard changing processes, things around your organization. So, the next thing I'll talk about is like, how do you get started then, right? So, I know what my value is. I know what I'm going after from an objective. I've prioritized my opportunities and chose a solution, right? So kind of thinking back to kind of the lean principles, right? Feasible, usable, viable. And how do I make sure what I'm building is all of those, and how quickly can I do that, right? So working, with ClearObject and our customers, we really do like to focus a lot in that early discovery process to make sure that we really can understand what it is that you want, what are the values, make sure we have exhaustively understood what the potential solutions are, working with you, conceptualize a little bit about what does this look like. Jeremy mentioned, right? Less coding, more about the AI UX. But ultimately, how are you going to use these inferences? When I start to get these inferences, how do I know what to do? How prescriptive are they going to be? When it's GenAI, how much does it reference back to given information, right? All of this is important, and you kind of conceptualize and think about as you get started. And then the next piece really being about the validation. right? So a lot of, especially right now, I think people are still getting comfortable with the ability of adopting AI and understanding that what we're presenting is feasible. I think Vision AI is easiest to understand and explain. So I'll give a quick example of that. Say you want a Vision AI model to recognize a specific pattern of a human being. One of the questions might just be, can we build a model? So taking the least amount of data as possible, how can I start to conceptualize and see that that model is working? And a lot of times what we call interpretive AI. So really understanding that how the AI is working so that you can understand where it is or isn't, and then use that to continue to evolve and make improvements over time. So just thinking about that as you go through your AI process, again, breaking it into smaller chunks, I think is the most important, so that really you can validate that it's feasible, usable, as well as viable. And viable being a key piece of the cost and everything that it takes to operate that solution. So again, as folks say, AI isn't always the most cost-effective solution, but again, identifying those as you go through the process. So here's an example of where we have a lot of experience working with customers. This is a goal of a lot of manufacturers, based here in Indianapolis, heart of manufacturing. We do work with a lot of customers who are saying, hey, I want to increase the percentage of my manufacturing automation. One of the opportunities is just, hey, I need to augment my human processes today. One of the things you can do, you can go buy new, more automated equipment. A lot of adoption today is using your old equipment, but augmenting it with new AI capabilities, such as smart sensors, which could be vision enabled, as well as soft sensors, which is now creating sensor data from software, tying all that information together. And this is not an exhaustive list by any means of solutions that can fall within this. And this gets back to, again, our GenAI, generative AI now allowing your humans in the loop to be able to ask questions of your manufacturing information in more structured ways. So hopefully this just gives you a good concept of how to think about your problems, how to start to break them down. Obviously, we are more than happy to work with customers. We do a lot of workshops focused on just building those solution trees and working with our customers. So this next slide, similar to kind of what Jeremy had, where it's just talking a little bit about like, hey, where are the unique solutions for AI? This is just a little bit more pointed questions focusing on the three areas like I've talked about: vision, connected products, generative AI. Really some questions that you can ask yourself. And if the answer to these is yes, more than likely, hey, you have identified potential AI solutions that you could do. So, when I'm taking a look at vision, is there humans in the loop today that are looking at things that, whether that's intermittently or all the time, they're standing over a line, they're responsible for quality checking, picking, those types of things. That's where vision can really come in key as a solution. And something that I always say, if someone can see it, we can train AI to see it, no problem at all. From a connected products, this is more of your, hey, I've standard IoT, I put sensors in, I now understand what's happening, but how do I start to make a better understanding, start to predict, start to help those who are using that equipment, whether those are customers or our own internal people. And so a few pointed questions at that. And again, one of my hints in this one is start by understanding your leading causes of disruption. A lot of times people say, hey, I want to predict this. And the number one question we have is, well, how disruptive is that? How often is it occurring? If you could really focus on understanding what is causing your disruption today, that could be very helpful. I'm going to hand it over to Jason Legenis. He's our product manager on the GenAI space to talk a little bit about identifying potential AI solutions within GenAI, as well as kind of walk through a case study on that as well. So Jason, I'll let you take it over for a minute.
Sure. Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I work closely with Derek and the product team there. And actually, we could go back a slide. I will finish up just on some, high-level questions you may want to ask when talking about GenAI. So we have been working with a number of clients this year, looking into, how might we adopt GenAI? Obviously, it's a very new technology, and echoing a lot of what Jeremy and Derek have said, very much what we recommend starting with where is there a good ROI for this technology. So I do have a few bullet points here of some kind of common use cases we are seeing where you might actually see an ROI. So if you have any repetitive tasks that involve summarizing or classifying documents that humans are doing today, that can be a really good place to start. Kind of the bread and butter of GenAI with new large language models is looking at kind of conversational experiences like customer chatbots, for instance. And then something else to note, if you have any business processes that utilize complex rules and policy documents or regulations, that can be a very good use case if you have people that are going through hundreds of these policy documents. There's actually a lot you can do with large language models to automate answering questions of those complex rule sets. And so, just lastly to note, we would recommend probably starting more on automating business processes. That seems to be a really good place to start if you're getting your feet wet. Part of that being because there are actually ROIs in those spaces. A lot of folks want to start with enterprise search, and some companies do have good use cases there. It's not saying you shouldn't start there at all, but we have found those ROIs tend to be a bit more nebulous and can be a little bit harder to move forward. So that is my hint as you think about where to start. And so I will, if we could go to the next slide, we do want to talk through just a few use cases of, what can some of these projects look like? What is the problem that we're trying to address, and how do we solve it with AI? So specifically in GenAI, we did just want to highlight a recent proof of concept we've worked on with a company. It's a mortgage lender that specifically focuses on working with active military members or veterans. And something that is true of basically all mortgage companies is there are a lot of regulations and policy documents out there. And so if you have someone come in with a certain situation and it's not obvious that they're able to be approved for a loan, you have to go through a number of these exceptions rules, which can be very specific to this person's situation. Veterans, for instance, do have specific rule sets that you have to consider for their that they can get for certain VA loans and such. And so it can take a lot of time to kind of dig into a certain person's situation, determine whether or not this person is eligible based on basically this mountain of policy documents. And so you have to have a team that's very familiar with these documents. It's very time consuming to kind of dig through. These policies and regulations change month to month, and so you have to keep on top of that as well. So this is a great use case for GenAI because you can absolutely reference all of these documents. You do have to do some things like advanced retrieval augmented generation approaches to avoid issues like hallucination. But it's definitely an addressable problem with GenAI. This is the kind of use case that we think is fantastic to dig into. So what did we do? We utilized some of our tooling that we actually bring called the GenAI Builder, which is something we are actively building as a product. And what we did is make a chatbot in a system for ingesting these documents in a way that we can use in this retrieval augmented generation approach. And if you hear of RAG in the context of GenAI, just be aware that is a method of prompt engineering to basically utilize your documents with an off-the-shelf large language model without having to fine-tune it. There's a lot of creative energy in this space, and just be aware, if you are looking at how do I incorporate my data when it wasn't trained in the training base for the large language model, RAG is a fantastic place to look at. And so we built a system to basically be able to ask questions of these policy documents. So this person is in this situation. Are they approved for a loan or not? We go and reference all of these documents, utilize the large language model to provide a response. And we provided a web interface for folks to get those questions back. So now, when fully deployed, we are anticipating something up to 30 to 50% kind of efficiencies for this team, being able to automate some of these answers. Do want to definitely note, we do want to put guardrails in, especially when you're talking about something very important, like whether or not someone is approved for a loan. So we do have a human in the loop of these processes, and you want to think through all these guardrails when you implement these. But we are finding to augment that team, give them a tool to very quickly tell them what information is relevant, provide a summarized response and level of confidence. That GenAI is a great tool for this. All right, so that is a great example of GenAI in action. And Derek, I will throw it back to you to talk about Vision AI.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I'll quickly run through this too as well. Make sure we got enough time here for questions at the end of this. So again, focusing on the customer, understanding what is the value. In this case, Knauf, work with them as an organization, insulation manufacturer, gypsum board manufacturer. They going back to what is their goal around a lot of automation. Specifically, the problem we were focused on in some of the POCs and deliveries that we've had over the years, focused on really improving and identifying automation in inspection. So areas throughout the process where even today, or previously, the health and safety didn't allow for good inspections in some of the manufacturing processes. Whereas now using a vision system, we can put those in place and drive the adoption of those by understanding what's happening, what's the nuances, what's the variation, a better control of the overall manufacturing process. So that was really the problem. Hey, we have this manufacturing process today, a lot of variation, don't have a good way to understand the variation without some intermittent checks with the human in a bad health and safety environment. So solution we developed is a vision solution using a product offering that we have called ClearVision at the Edge, which is an inference engine, basically the AI that sits at the edge meaning that all the compute is occurring right there in real time, so that you don't have any latencies, so that information can be fed back to the process. And in this case, it's basically a fully automated visual inspection closed loop monitoring system, meaning that the visual AI that is occurring, the inferences that it are making are then sending that information back to the PLC so that it can make the right decisions on how to correct the process that is causing the variation and drive improvement in the product. So as Jeremy says, it basically is inference as a service. We're providing that model and those inference results to the customer as a service. And as a result of that, they've been able to see a realization of about 511% on an ROI. One of the things that we're really proud of is just the 50% reduction in some of the CO2 emissions as part of the solutions that we've developed and delivered to them as a global organization as well. So that was a quick highlight of that one. ClearObject, our offerings, as Jason alluded to, we're doing a lot in GenAI solution development. We have tools that enable the quick delivery of that. Similar with Vision and our AI solutions for manufacturing. And then we are just as well, this comes along the lines similar to what Jeremy was saying, AI UX, right? At the end, even if you build AI, it's how do I deliver that to my customer? So having the custom, the pieces that are going to be customized to deliver your solutions, we could do at ClearObject as well. And to get started with any of those, we start a lot of times with what we call AI workshops. And then that's where we'll really dig into those opportunity solution trees, really understand where are the potentials of where we can engage with you as an organization. Where does it make the most sense based on, you understand the value, we can help you better understand the effort of delivering some of those solutions. So I'll stop there. We'll hand it over to some Q&A. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Awesome. We do have some questions from the audience. Everybody decided to stay anonymous today. First question, and this can be for any of you who want to answer this, Jeremy, Jason, Derek. So the first one is new to this and reading about the LLMs. How do I know I'm tapping into the right LLM with the most recent information? Sometimes I ask a question and the AI tools tell me they don't have information past 2022.
Jason, I'll let you take that one. Yep.
Yeah, sure. No. So large language models are, huge, massive AI models that have billions of parameters. Some of them even up to like 1 trillion parameters. And so there is this kind of massive exercise to train the model. And so a lot of times they are a bit frozen in state, especially some of the first ones that came out. Now that is changing a bit where folks are, retraining models more often. If you're using, ChatGPT, I know that very famously had that like hard cutoff when it came out. But you will see that when you hit an API, sometimes there will be some limitations on the data that's available generally. And that could be, not just based on what is the time scale. Obviously, it was trained at some point, and if you have retraining, it's going to be more recent. There's also like the scope of the data that it's trained upon. And it is trained upon a very large data set, so it's going to have pretty broad capabilities. But at the same time, it may just be worth noting, with all these large language models, you may need to do some fine tuning to make it relative to your internal database. Or if you want to do kind of real-time tuning of sorts, that can be done with prompt engineering and what I had mentioned before in like retrieval augmented generation. But as far as like Google's tools, something maybe to highlight is I think just last week, actually, Google launched Gemini, which is a very capable new large language model. It is always good to kind of keep up in terms of, these large language models are coming out at a pretty fast pace. We're pretty impressed with Gemini. Bison from the Palm 2 model is the predecessor to that. And so, definitely you can look at what is the most recent model. Like if you log into Google's console in their AI studio, you can actually just select which model you want to work with. And I'll just note, if you are working in Google's tools, Gemini is definitely the one to check out at the moment. And yeah, I think that's all I got. Jeremy, I didn't know if...
Yeah, let me pile on with that one. So the last part of that question, where how do I keep it updated with the most recent? So you can use things like extensions, which are basically plugins to your API, to the large language model API, which can gather really recent information. So you might ask Gemini, what's today's date? It will give you like, the last time it was trained, April, 23rd, 2023 or something like that. And so the bigger the model is, the more expensive, the longer it takes to train. So while you may more frequently train or update smaller models, larger models, you may just want to plug in extensions to create that more recent relevant information. And a common misconception folks make is, I'm going to ask a large language model to query the internet. That's not what it's designed for. You want to query the internet, go use Google search. If you want to ask a question that requires reasoning, and if I'm a customer who's building an application that uses an LLM for a specific purpose, I want to use that reasoning. I want to combine that with my, call it corpus of data, or my smarts or my proprietary IP, and then create that answer, which uses the reasoning and the language from the large language model, plus the relevant information to create the right answer, and the relevant, most up-to-date answer.
Very cool. Thank you. Next question. How do I know that my data is secure? I think that's a big question that everyone has right now in terms of AI. So how do we ensure the security of data?
I can speak a little bit to GCP. Derek, Jason, I don't know if you want to take that one first, but happy to jump on as it relates.
And I can talk to that. So obviously, any software setting where you have a cloud-based solution, this is always going to be an important topic. I will note there is a difference between consumer-facing tools in the terms and conditions there and enterprise-focused solutions. So like Vertex AI, Google Cloud, for instance, you're going to get all the enterprise guarantees you get in basically any other service. That's an important, differentiation to note. So, when ChatGPT initially came out, it's a free service. They wanted to get a lot of your, feedback in the terms and conditions. It says we can use your data to retrain the model. And so a lot of articles came out about that. My data leaked in ChatGPT, but that is really because it's a consumer-facing product. And baked into it being free was that they could use your data. It's very different in something like Vertex AI. That's an enterprise-focused solution. You're going to get all the typical enterprise guarantees and the terms and conditions as you would with any other cloud service. So when you use a large language model in Vertex AI, for instance, it's going to be a frozen kind of state of the model that you're interacting with, and none of the data that goes to that model is going to be used to retrain it. And it's all going to stay within your GCP tenant. So that is a pretty important, delineation. It comes up a lot in GenAI specifically because of a lot of those articles initially from ChatGPT, but it's important to note it's a very different set of terms and conditions. In the enterprise world, your data is very secure, and with these enterprise focused services.
Great, thank you. All right, next question. We tried to build something ourselves and it isn't working as we thought it would. Is AI going to live up to the promise?
Yeah, I could talk to that one, Janine. I think we get this one quite a bit, but usually, okay, where does AI typically fail? There's two spots, right? Does the model do what we want it to? But ultimately, the second one is more, how do I operationalize this? Meaning, typically someone said, hey, I had somebody who's taking a look at this. We've kind of tested it. We can see, how AI can work, but we don't really know what to do with it as a next step, how to productionize it. So that is, a lot of areas where the tools, combination of a partner like ourselves, ClearObject, GCP in their environment, really make what we focus on is operationalizing a lot of AI. So, if you say, hey, we have some AI we've been building, we've got some models, we really need that help to take that next step. How do we scale it? That's where we can help. The other option, the other thing is, okay, maybe what is it specifically? If you go back to that opportunity solution tree, what's the value that you're really trying to provide? Did you select the wrong use case, or what are the things around that? But again, usually that is not what we see. It's more of like, hey, I've done a little bit, but how do I take it to the next step and really use this in production?
Great. Another one. What about when AI hallucinates? Will my AI project give me the wrong information?
I'd love to take this one. So as Jason and Derek mentioned, the models themselves are static and frozen. And so the hallucinations are an effort for the model to make something fit, right? And so just like any application or other cloud deployment, you have to make sure that as you're using this one part of your overall stack, that you're informing that model with the right information so that it doesn't hallucinate, actually gives you the right answers. And so, while folks kind of think like, oh, it's the large language model's fault for doing that, actually it's perhaps a shortcoming in how we might create a more robust generative AI application. And so there's a lot of techniques that we can use. In particular, Jason mentioned a lot of the grounding techniques that folks are using, chain of thought techniques that have been around for a while to help get the answers from your corpus of data. A great example of this is you have an HR chatbot. You want to be able to answer questions for your employees, and a policy changes. You have to make sure that you update the data store that contains that information so that it has the most relevant and up-to-date information and doesn't make something up that may be based on old information. Sort of like re-indexing your services. Hope that makes sense. Anything to add, guys, feel free.
Thought that was great.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. I know, and what we found working with large language models is sometimes they will just make assumptions if you're not explicit on giving it directions. And so you really need to figure out, how do I take something implicit and ask it something very explicit, especially if it's something that is fact-based. The large language model is going to be pretty good at general understanding of a domain. But if it doesn't quite know the answer, sometimes it will just make an assumption and go with it. And so the more you can take something implicit in your question and make it more explicit and provide some of those grounding rules and boundary conditions, the more likely you're to get a better result.
Jeremy says it's like acronym mapping.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah. Okay. And again, we have only a few more minutes, but if anybody else wants to ask a question, the Q&A section is still open, bottom right-hand corner. Click on the little shapes and enter your question. We'll get to you. But I've got two more questions here. One is, my organization is interested in AI. We've been discussing it a lot and having presentations on it, but how do we move this discussion into a reality? How do I get my organization to act on adopting AI?
I could take that one. I mean, like I said, where's the spot that we start with a lot of our customers? First, sitting down with our customers' teams, leadership, whatever that may be, where the discussions have been had, and really facilitating a workshop that can really help them identify where their opportunities and solutions lie. And again, from that, the output of that could be, hey, we can give you a good example of what the solutions are that we can help you deliver. and what the level of effort is, so you have a better understanding of cost, so you're not making any assumptions on what the cost could be. With the improvement in the tools and the capability of AI, the barriers to entry are getting lower for building and using AI. I think is important. And then as adoption goes, right, as you start to deliver smaller POCs, demonstrate really how valuable that can be. And if you build those POCs in the right way, where it even can help you justify and build the ROI, I think that could be very helpful.
Nice. And then in terms of ROI, last question. Are we investing in AI fast enough in a way that protects and builds our most important assets? How much should we expect to pay for an AI solution? And how soon will we see an ROI?
Broad question, but I'll do my best to answer, a couple pieces there. I would say, are you investing enough? Sales team will tell me to tell you, no, you need to be investing more. Ultimately, I will say though, real response is everyone is looking at it. So if you're not, your competitors likely are. And how much, I guess, really that's going to depend on you as an organization. But I will say, just make sure you do have some AI solutions that you are looking at. How much you should look to pay, that can vary very widely across the board as well. Sometimes you're talking about new cars, other times you're talking about new homes. But that's kind of the range that I would put it in. New car, new homes, maybe even a little less, maybe buying a used car at times, depending on the use case. Just think about it in those kind of ranges. And ROIs can be, almost immediate from some of these. The generative AI solutions being able to start to deliver real value to your team as soon as you roll out a POC, right? As soon as you've got that agent, Jason alluded to back to the use case we described earlier, that really started to enable the team to do their jobs more efficiently as soon as we rolled that out. So your ROI can be fairly quick in these solutions. Jeremy and Jason, I don't know if you have anything to add on that.
Yep, I guess good.
Great. Guys, this was great. Thank you so much for your time today and all of your insights. I've left a link in the comment section there in case anyone is interested in booking an AI workshop. We do provide those. We'll go through your use cases and your disruptions like Derek was talking about. It's a really great way to jumpstart your 2024 AI strategy. So unless anyone has any more questions or comments, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. I'm wishing everybody a wonderful holiday season. And yeah, hopefully AI is part of your strategy next year.
All right. Thanks, Janine. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Yes.
See you guys.